There was a tweet about Blue Bloods, and this is an argument we could have, and I say argument, this is a discussion that we could have every day on this show. We do a lot of college football. So leave that up for a little bit, Garrett, if you don't mind. This is from a guy, I don't even know who he was. I just happened to see it, and I said, okay, this is always a fun and can be a discussion where we all disagree and agree to disagree. So he put down 3 levels of blue bloods in college football. Absolutely, USC, Oklahoma, Texas, Michigan, Ohio State, Alabama, and Notre Dame. I would not argue against any of them being a college football blue blood, no matter the length of droughts and or what. They are all at the very highest of where they are over the history of college football, and even enough recency with most of them.
I'm wondering what his standards are for blue bloods. Is it like the consistency over time? Because if that's the case, then you've got to kind of maybe drop USC down a level.
No.
Which you wouldn't, but again, potentially, like the 3 that are in potentially have 3 national titles, 5 national titles, and 3 national titles. So that's more than Penn State has, and that's more than Tennessee has. So I would drop.
Can we wait? Don't bring up the ones below them yet. Let's just talk about them. There is you think that if there's an argument with any of the ones, that absolutely it'd be USC?
No,
There's not an argument.
But I was asking what his standards are, and that's why I would say that. So, but yeah, I don't think there's any, and absolutely, I'm not going to argue anybody.
Okay, argue, Craig.
Well, it's clearly the off season rather than blue bloods talk.
Well, we're a college football show as well.
But it just I don't think it's changed much from last year, the year before, except for Georgia just keeps raising its stock. So yeah, I mean, I think that all of those are those are fine where they are.
Arguably, and this is interesting, Georgia now with a couple of national titles after going 40 years without one. Florida State has won within the last 10 years. Nebraska has not won since 1997, which is 25 years ago. They played for 1-01, and they shouldn't have. LSU has won under Saban and Les Miles and Ed Orgeron. Tennessee, now that's a drought, because they didn't have the history of, for example, in that same group, Nebraska at all. But they did win in 1998. Penn State used to be a part of that, absolutely. They've still been steady. They just haven't really threatened to win a national title, it seems like, in quite some time.
Well, yeah, I don't think I can talk about Penn State without talking about the other ones, because I think, based on the ones below it, that Penn State is far behind all those schools. I don't know far, but they are, like, especially lately, really behind them all.
Yeah, there's definitely some new blood and some old blood, but whether they're blue or not, that's the hard. Yeah, I mean, I think it all just depends on your definition of blue blood, or your not even so much your definition, but your interpretation of what that means, because some might have a far more elite list that cuts it off at like 10, right? And then some, if you really want to kind of like, okay, yeah, we can make it 20. Kind of like whatever this list, what's this, 3, 7, 10, 13, 16 teams on this list. So, yeah. Like Penn State's a blue blood in some ways, but like I don't know. I could hear arguments on either side for that one.
All right. Potentially, Florida had their run, winning in 1996 and then winning again under Urban Meyer twice, and part of the conversation for quite some time. Miami had a long run from 83 when they beat Nebraska until 2001 when they may have been the best team in the history of college football. But since that time, they've been hit and miss. Clemson was it 1981 or whatever, they won the national title, and then they were kind of like Georgia. They were pretty good at times, but until Dabo got there, and then, of course, they've taken off in the last 8 to 10 years with him, and they've been winning 2 and then involved in a couple of others as far as right on the cusp of winning more.
Yeah, I just think that those 3 they're outside of potentially and at least inarguably.
Yeah.
Now, yeah, I mean, so
Clemson's new to it, but yeah, they are.
Yeah, I mean, and Miami's old to it because it's been 22 years, but even still, they've won 5 of them. So if you're basing everything on history because Michigan's in that, Notre Dame's in that, Tennessee's in that, and Penn State's in that, and Nebraska, then all 3 of those have to raise up to that other level.
Okay. And again, this is just a tweet. I don't know what his criteria was. It doesn't matter. It's always a great discussion. I'm going to go to the chat room in a minute. Scott Drew joins us in about 10 minutes. In August of this past year, Sports Illustrated did a fan poll asking who were the bluest of the bloods in college football. Alabama was number 1, Ohio State 2, Oklahoma 3, Notre Dame 4, Nebraska 5, Michigan, USC, and Texas. And I would look at that list, and it's a graphic in front of me. I would look at that list, and I would not kick any of them out, even though, go ahead and put the other tweet back up again, Garrett. Let's go over something. No, that's not it. When was the last time USC won a national title? 04?
Yep.
Oklahoma, 2000. Texas, 05. Michigan, 97.
Mm-hmm.
Ohio State would have been
2014.
Alabama, just name them. Notre Dame,
1987.
1988, 87 or 88 with Lou Holtz.
Yeah.
Nebraska, 97. LSU's won a handful. Georgia's won the last 2. Florida State, 13.
Yep.
Tennessee,
98.
Penn State,
80-something, right?
80.
I don't have them memorized. It's been so.
Yeah.
They beat
such
Miami.
a non-factor in my
They
lifetime.
beat Miami when they intercepted a pass at the goal line when Miami had the great run, and I don't know if it was Jimmy Johnson. So that would have been, I think, in the late 80s. They won in 82, I think.
Claimed national titles, 82 and 86.
86 is when they shocked Vinny Testaverde in Miami. So they had a nice run. And then Florida.
Blue blood though, like that's where I'm kind of like, that's what I mean is like that. I'm sort of on the fence with that. I mean, because there has to be a cutoff somewhere. And it's like, is the cutoff just you've won a national title? Is the cutoff you've won a couple of them? I mean, yeah, you won a couple of them, but it's like, okay, well then let's throw Princeton in there. They've won a bunch of national.
Minnesota
like,
back in the day.
Let's throw Minnesota. How's Yale doing in the blue blood? You know what I mean? Like that's where it's. That's why I think it's such a subjective argument. Is that everybody's probably going to have some sort of different criteria, and I tend to lean towards. You don't have any doubt that you're starting to drop off the elite level. And then when I start to get into kind of like the tail end of this, I think this is a really solid list. Like if you were to go to 20 though, that's when you're really like starting to stretch it out, I think, a bit.
If in fact, Garrett, you get into this too, if you had to knock out 2 programs, and it could be none, but if you knocked out 2 from the absolutely, arguably, and potentially, who would you knock off of that list?
For me, I would replace Tennessee with Miami. And then, I mean, Penn State, they haven't, I was 1 the last time they won a national championship. So, yeah, those 2 I would probably replace with Miami and I don't know. Definitely Miami and probably Florida. Clemson's got to be in the mix as well, but.
All right, I'm going to give you if I was forced to take 2 names off the list, which will create argument no matter who, they've been good, but I would, if I'm talking about blue bloods, I would take off Tennessee and Florida.
Enjoy your DMs.
Tennessee might be back here in the middle. You know, looks like they're going to do something with Heupel, but I'm talking, if I had to, I would take off as far as blue bloods. And again, I know that some of those schools, like, for example, Michigan 97, Nebraska, Michigan 97 shared it with the. I would think they'll overall. You're looking at the last 25 to 40 years of college football. It's hard to take anybody off, but if I did, Tennessee, it's been a long drought for them.
I also think, okay, you mentioned drought. I also think that the way I would measure it also on a blue blood is not only how many titles you won, but how often you're consistently in contention.
Okay, well, Tennessee and Nebraska have almost the same resume. If you don't look ahead of that, 98 for Tennessee, 97 for Nebraska.
Well, no, I mean, like, ahead of it does matter, too, because, like, the way you've built up your program, the history matters because you've got, like, Tennessee and Nebraska always have full stadiums, right? I mean, they're still doing that in spite of those long droughts. So that's why, you have to consider that. But I do think that one of the things, if you're going to take people off the list, is how long are your droughts throughout the periods? So Miami wasn't doing anything. They were about to drop football. They hired Howard Schnellenberger, and he changed the whole perception of it. But since that time, they've just been lost in the wilderness because they got behind, especially on facilities. But all the other, like LSU is a great example of this. They have been good in pretty much every era. Now they've managed that. So LSU to me fits that.
They won the national titles before. They played for it in 1970, and then of course they've had the great run since when Saban arrived.
I mean,
I'm dropping Penn State and Miami.
Yeah.
All right.
I think that's the route I'm going. You mentioned Tennessee. They've got one more national title than Nebraska does. So I mean,
What?
They've got 6 national titles.
Okay, all right.
They have one more title than Nebraska does.
I'd like to see how many of them are the ones that aren't just like Sagarin.
yeah.
Florida, I mean, that's very new booty. That's very. I mean, they've won 2 since 2000,
New
and without
booty.
that, they won. The only other one was in '96 with Spurrier. So I mean, they're like that's when though you start to get like you'll hear from longtime Florida fan or longtime insert school here, and you'll hear about the number of All-Americans that they have. You know, and then you start like you can get into the. It's like, but longevity doesn't mean blue blood. You know what I mean? Like that's where it also gets into is like, yeah, you have all that because you've been playing for 50 years longer than some other schools have, and so you have a built-in advantage.
And that's where Miami and Florida State don't because they had not been playing for as long.
So I think you have to weight that and consider that. But yeah, like if your argument is like, well, we have more All-Americans or more All-Conference guys, it's like, but you were in that for 50 years longer, then okay. But like if we're doing national titles and Heisman Trophy winners, like that's a different argument. So yeah, I think again, it's very subjective. I don't think there's 25 blue bloods in college football. And what again is the definition of blue blood? Because some people will just say, oh, well, it's like you recruit really well and you're just one of the it schools. And I don't think that that's a blue blood. I don't think it's just that you're a hot school and not like hot in the moment like Oregon. Oregon's not a blue blood, but like just a popular school. I don't think popularity means blue blood, but I feel like sometimes popularity inserts certain schools into the blue blood conversation, again, depending on who we're talking about making certain
And when we're having this
and when we're having the
discussion.
I
conversation.
might be wrong, but Tennessee has 2 what are considered national titles. There's probably some on the others at AP or UPI, which of course changed some of their names in 1951 and 1988.
Now,
1998.
Claimed national titles 38, 40, 50, 51, 67, and 98. Tennessee claims 6 national
They
titles.
can claim them. Like USC might claim 20, but the AP and or UPI is the one that are the national
That's
title.
subjective.
Yeah.
I mean, it honestly is because other people don't agree because they hang banners saying these are the national championships. Granted, they're doing that for recruiting or just to put more banners up, but there's not like a rule that, oh, no, you're only allowed to count so-and-so.
No. There is a rule. The AP national title was what it was forever. That was the only one, and then the UPI started one, and those are the ones that are considered, and then, of course, it became the BCS and then the college football playoff. Those are the ones that are the real national titles. That's based on college football history.
Okay, well, inform A&M and everybody else who's put up banners. There's
Well,
a
A&M
ton
has
of
that
schools.
one.
Yeah, Oklahoma State's claimed other Oklahoma State's claimed the title. A&M's claimed the title. That's what I'm saying. I saw an Auburn fan arguing of how they could collect like 4 more unclaimed national titles. And so that's all I'm telling you is you can take it how you want to, but again, that's subjective because yes, that should be the rule, but schools themselves claim more than they actually have because it's UCF claims a national title.
A&M had to take one. Look, A&M has 1 national title. It was 1939.
Right.
That's it. That was the national title. I believe Dana X-Bible was the coach. That was when they won. They were really good in 1957 when Bear Bryant was there, but they weren't national champions. They didn't win the AP. But and then after that, they've had no other team.
All right, here's Oklahoma has 7 national championships. The ones that were the AP and or Bowl Championship Series, their last one. In addition to these 7 national titles that are acknowledged, there are 10 additional years in which the NCAA official record books, for example, math rating systems, Sagarin, Dunkel Index, or whatever. I have never thought of those, and that's not just because I have always thought the national title, you can claim a lot of them. Okay, I get it. 2017 UCF or whatever it was. But, okay.
So I'm not telling you you're right or wrong. I agree with you that there should be a cutoff. But what I'm telling you is that the numbers that you're working with and you say, no, they've only got 2, well, then you'll get argued till you're blue in the face over
I can argue,
over what's claimed.
And I will.
Yeah.
For example, and I know Scott Drew's next. Oklahoma does not acknowledge these additional championships as they were not awarded by the Associated Press, the UPI, and eventually what became the USA Today Coaches Poll, or what is the Bowl Championship Series. So there might be 10 other ones, and Tennessee might have 4 or 5 other ones, and I'll wait for my DMs to blow up. All right.